Hey guys, and welcome back. Here we are, and today I'm going to be giving you a bonus episode. So here we are. This is episode 14, and I'm going to be talking today about the cult 1959 classic Bucket of Blood. Now, Bucket of Blood is directed by my man Roger Corman, the King of the Bees, as he's known notoriously. Um, Besides Roger Corman directing, we have a script by a Charles B. Griffith. Some interesting trivia about this film, or at least I thought it was interesting. So apparently they used this set in 1960 for Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors, which would later on in the 80s, of course, be remade into a Broadway play, and then another film version, a musical, starring our man Rick Moranis. So some interesting trivia to throw your way. So our lead cast, we have Dick Miller here. Dick is playing Walter Paisley, who is a aspiring artist. He's also a busboy at a bohemian cafe filled with the beatniks of the time called the Yellow Door. We have his potential love interest, Carla, who's played by Barbara Morris. And then we have a gentleman named Leonard DeSantis, who's played by Anthony Carbone. He's a fellow artist. We have Miss Swickart, the landlady, and that's played by Myrtle Vale. We have Julian Burton, who is played by Maxwell H. Brock. We have a lady named Naolia, who is played by Jean Burton. And then we have an Art Lacroix, who's played by Ed Nelson. We also have a young lady named Alice, who's played by Judy Bambor. So to get started with the script, guys, the script starts out and we have this little bohemian cafe, and we have this guy giving us some spoken word poetry, and he's got some jazz music in the background. He's just giving the spoken word. And as he's doing that, we are introduced to our main man, Walter, here. And Walter is going around bussing tables. Meanwhile, at a table, we see some people kind of making fun of Walter, making fun of the fact that, he's aspiring to be an artist, but he's just a lowly busboy, and they don't think he'll ever make it to the ranks of an artiste, if you will. So that's how we start our film out with. And then from there, we see Walter, and he's going home, and he gets home into his apartment, and before he enters, he runs into his landlady, and she's like, "Hey, you don't look that great. Do you want me to make you some soup or make you some food?" Landlady is Miss Swickert, and he's like, "No, I'm fine. But thank you for asking." And she's like, "Oh, well, if you see, my, Frankie, Frankie's her pet cat. She's like, if you see Frankie, can you do me a favor and please return him?" So he's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So, he gets into the apartment, and our man here is a sculptor, Walter. Walter tries to sculpt something, but he's not a very good sculptor. He's like, I can't get the nose right, and this just looks horrible, and he's getting frustrated. And then he's even more frustrated because in the background he hears like the meowing noise. So apparently that's Miss Swickert, our landlady's cat, and he's looking around the room and trying to figure out where it is. And he comes to the realization that she is, in fact, stuck in the wall in his living room, somehow or another. I don't know how, but, cats get into weird places. So he takes a knife from the kitchen, and he proceeds to try to cut open the wall so he can rescue the poor cat, because in the beginning here, Walter is a nice guy. He gets walked over a lot and made fun of, but he's genuinely a nice guy. So in the process of him trying to free the cat from the wall, unfortunately, what happens is he ends up breaking the wall open, but in the process, he accidentally stabs the cat. So, he's, of course, feels horrible about it. He decides he'll tell her about it in the morning. He goes to bed. Yeah, he wakes up, and in the morning he just gets a stroke of genius, of inspiration, and he thinks to himself, well, why should I do that when I can take this cat, as he looks over at his sculpting clay, and he douses her in the sculpting clay, poor Frankie. And the next thing you know, we have Walter's wonderful work of art, à la Resistance, the beautiful piece of work. So he goes to work at the yellow door, and he, hold on one second. Use my cheat sheet, don't judge, guys. He shows up at work the next day, and we were introduced to Carla, a girl that he's very interested in, who's a patron of the arts, and also works there as a waitress. And Leonard, a artist there as well, and he shows them the cat, and they see the knife in the cat's head, as well as just the cat, and in this beautiful sculpture. They're both in awe and shock, but they remark how amazing, and especially the expression on the cat's face. One of the artists, Maxwell, makes an announcement. They said, oh, well, why don't we put it in the corner just in case, who knows, maybe someone will be interested in it, because it is really remarkable. One of the artists who were introduced, Maxwell, also does spoken word in the beginning of the film, on the very opening scene. He announces to everybody, hey guys, look at Walter, he did this amazing work of art. Let's all take it in awe. And they're all like, all these beatniks, they're like checking it out, and they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome, So they're all pretty, enthused and impressed. Let's face it, it's realism art at its finest, guys. So everyone's impressed by this, and everyone, is making our man already into a hero, on his beautiful work of art. Then next we see a girl named Naioli, who is taken in by him. She's like, oh, your work of art is so beautiful. I want to be with you. I want to spend the night with you and get into your artistic world. And he's kind of shy, and he's like, no, I can't do that. My landlady wouldn't like that, and I could get in trouble, and da-da-da-da. He's making excuses. He doesn't really want anything to do with that. She's like, oh, well, let me give you this. Let me give you something. And at first we don't see it, and then you see like it looks like a bottle of pills. So she gives him this bottle of pills, and our man proceeds to go home. And as he's leaving, we see a guy in the corner kind of like see the transaction between Naioli and Walter, and he follows Walter home. Walter gets home, and he looks at the pills, but he doesn't even really do anything. He looks like he's about to try to make himself a meal, and perhaps, get back into his artwork. And the man knocks the door, and he's like, my name is Lou, and I'm with the police, and I'm here to arrest you. He's like, I saw that you had that heroin. And he's like, heroin, what are you talking about? He's in shock, and he's like, the pills right there. He's like, who's your drug dealer? And he's like, I didn't know they were drugs. This girl just came up to me and she gave them to me. And he's like, oh, well, we'll sort this down at the police station. We'll figure it out one way or another. So in a moment of just, I guess, in pure shock and just being scared, our man Walter works up some courage, and he, before you know it, he takes this frying pan and just whacks Lou over the head with it. So that makes a loud noise, and our landlady, Miss Swickert, knocks on the door anxiously. Hey, what's that noise? Let me in here. And Walter just covers the body with a sheet and tries to hide it. She comes in. She's like, what's going on? And he's like, nothing. I just made a noise. I dropped something by accident. It's not a big deal. So he kind of brushes her off. You can see she's kind of suspicious, but she doesn't really have anything to go on. So it's not like she can do anything, really. She leaves, and then our man Walter decides, unfortunately, this is a horrible thing that happened, but he's not going to go turn himself in. And he already had this one masterpiece, so why not? Let's make another one. So from there, he proceeds to take the body, and he decides to throw this sculpting clay on him. And the next thing we know, we have the next masterpiece, a la Walter. From there, hold on one second, guys, because I lost my train of thought for a second. We see Walter at work again. Everyone asks what he's up to next, and he says, well, I actually have the next piece at my house. I just finished it last night, and it's a full body, and it's an interesting piece. So Carla and Leonard are both very interested, so they go to his house after work, and before that, just back up one second, guys, lost my train of thought. Before that, Leonard, the owner, is approached by an art dealer who loves the cat, and he says, listen, I'll give you $500 if I can have the cat and also take a first crack at his next work. Leonard said someone else currently has the cat, but you certainly can have it for that price. It'll be back in a couple days. So sorry about that slight diversion there. So Anton and Carla decide to go to Walter's house later that evening. And when they go to his house, they see his next work. And of course, that's Lou. Little do they know it's Lou. They just see this beautifully sculpted face, and there's this crack going down the middle, and it's absolutely terrifying. And they both notice that it looks super realistic and super amazing, but it's also very much disturbing, as something like that would be, I would imagine. Hold on a second, guys. Lucette suggests, instead of bringing this one to the yellow door and displaying it like they did with the cat, that maybe he work on a couple pieces and then do an art show. Probably makes more sense, So the next day we go to work yet again. There's not a lot of locations in this movie. It's Roger Cormans, so he usually takes a couple locations and try to make the best use of them. We see a lot of Walter back and forth the apartment and the yellow door. A couple of little spots here and there where he's not in those two places, but he does make best use of locations. Excuse me, guys. So the next day he's at work, and we're introduced to this, I guess, another beatnik type girl, this model type girl named Alice. And she's got a real attitude, and she thinks he's a joke, and she doesn't take his work very seriously and kind of makes fun of him, and he gets kind of aggravated. And he says, listen, who are you to judge me, They're obviously not too keen on each other. But he decides to, of course, use this as his next potential statue. So he follows Alice home, and he goes to her apartment, and he knocks on the door, and she's like, what do you want? And he's like, well, I just wanted to say I'm sorry that we had that bad interaction before. He's like, I think you might be great for my next work. I'd love to sculpt a statue in your image. And she's like, okay, I guess. It's like, I charge $25. And he's like, okay, not a problem. He's like, can you do it tonight? She's like, tonight? And she's like, but she agrees to it. So they go back to his place, and she's modeling, of course, and she's very scantily clad. And he's like, oh, here, I want you to put on this scarf, put it around your neck. And she's like, oh, okay. So then he proceeds to go ahead and choke the life out of her. And of course, our next sculpt, excuse me, is ready for action. And of course, the image, when you see this in the statue form, is she literally looks like someone that's being choked, because she was. So that's our next masterpiece, la resistance, if you will. And hold on one second. The next day, he goes to work again. One of the musicians, the beatnik poet, Maxwell, just said that he wants to throw a party in his honor. So they throw this big party, and it's a big to-do, and everyone's making our man Walter the man of the hour. And hold on one second. And Walter, at this point with this party, he's happy, he's excited. You can see like maybe he doesn't have to be a busboy anymore. So he's like, hey, this could be my potential, an actual career. Instead of just being this busboy, I actually can make a career of this. But when the party's over and he's stumbling home drunkenly, he's talking out loud to himself. He's like, well, what's the next big thing? What am I going to do next to grab people's attention? And he's kind of at a loss for words. Well, he comes across, looks like a carpenter who is working a blade saw. And the carpenter looks at him because he's talking to himself. And he's like, what do you want? And he's like, they kind of have some nasty words. And Walter proceeds to take the table saw, excuse me, and cut his head off. And that is our next big art piece, of course. So he does that. And then the next day we have the big art show. Walter shows Carla and Anton the bust, and they're, of course, shocked, but also amazed. And again, they note the realism in it, it looks so amazing, Walter walks Carla to the big show, and as he's walking her to the big show, he professes his love to her. He says, I'm not going to be a busboy forever. He's like, I've always loved you since the moment I met you. You were the only one that showed me kindness, true kindness, even when I was a nobody and you never made fun of me. And she, proceeds to tell him that, like, hey, you're a really nice guy, and I really like your work, but I just don't see you that way, And of course, Walter is heartbroken by this, as most people would be. He's like, okay, well, at the very least, would you mind modeling for me later on, maybe after the big show? And she's like, yeah, sure, we can do that. I'd be honored to be one of your subjects. So they go to the big show. And as we're at the big show, Carl is walking around all the pieces. And as she goes to one of the pieces, she noticed the hand, one of the fingers, you can see the clay had been worn through, and you can actually see human fingers. Walter sees the expression on her face, and he goes up to her and he's like, hi, Carla. And she's just like, stay away from me. I can't believe you murdered that girl. And he's like, but it's a work of art. Everyone loves it. And she just like, she's in pure freaked out mode. She just like hightails it out of there. And from there, we proceed to a big chase scene. And he tries to catch up to her. She's in a factory. And she kind of gives him the slip. And while he's in the factory, he starts hearing the voices. I think our man is starting to crack here, guys. He's hearing the voices of all the people he murdered, saying, they're going to get you. You're not getting away with this. And he's starting to freak out. And, all of Carla's friends at the club saw her, like, take off. And they saw Walter race after her. So they know there's something definitely not right. So they, at this point, start to head in that direction that Walter went to. Well, Walter can't find Carla. But he's starting to freak out because, like I said, he's hearing these voices. He's definitely starting to crack up. So he ends up going home. And then meanwhile, everyone's like, kind of like I said, they found Carla at this point. She's safe. They figure they have to confront Walter because now they know what's going on. Walter, in the meanwhile, gets home and he's like, I know the perfect place to hide. I'll hide in one of my works of art. And then we cut to all those people getting to Walter's apartment. And Miss Swickert is there, the landlady, and she lets everybody in. And we see Walter has hung himself. And Anthony replies, well, I guess that was his final work of art. And then we close with the closing credits. And that is our movie. Now, this movie definitely is a fun movie. I will not say it is a masterpiece like our main artist's works of art, but That said, it's an enjoyable, fun movie. And it was done really low on a cheap budget, like I said, 50,000, made 180,000, and it is a fun film. I wouldn't say it's the first horror comedy. I don't know if that would go to the honor of The Bride of Frankenstein, but I think it had been quite a while since there had been a real horror comedy in that subgenre. And while this film by no means is perfect, it's a fun, enjoyable, light movie. It's probably like 105 minutes, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Dick Miller does a fantastic job. You know, the whole beatnik era, how that works into the movie is great. It's a good time, guys. I definitely would give this movie a thumbs up, and definitely worth checking out. I mean, Dick Miller is one of those guys. He's been in a million things. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. In my younger years, once upon a time, I would watch. Find myself getting caught up watching the reruns of Beverly Hills 90210, and he was the owner of the Peach Pit, and that was, I guess, one of his bigger, more mainstream roles. But he's been in a ton of stuff, and he's always a pleasure to watch, no matter what he's in. So I would say this film is definitely well worth your time. I like just the simple concept of the artist that is struggling to make good work, and he's going to make it one way or another, even if it's taking apart some bodies to do so, and taking out some people. And I think it's an enjoyable film, and it's well worth your time. So definitely check it out, guys. A few things I want to say. Number one, I just want to apologize again for last week's episode, episode 13, because while I'm very proud of that episode, I feel horrible because, like I said, it was 4 parts. It wasn't meant to be 4 parts. Like I said, I had some technical errors. Unfortunately, what happened was, because I do shoot with my phone, for whatever reason, I was having a thing where I'd be shooting sometimes, and it would only happen at first once in a while. I'd get like an ad that would pop up, and it was the most annoying thing because it happened twice. So it ended up being, like I said, 4 parts instead of originally it was excuse me, it was going to be 2 parts. But the good news is I figured out what the issue was. Basically, I just deleted pretty much almost all the apps on my phone that weren't essential. And since then, I haven't had any other issues. So that should be no longer presenting a problem from now on. Also, guys, something I didn't mention, and it's once again my message about physical media. While there's nothing wrong with streaming, and I do enjoy streaming stuff, a couple weeks ago I lost my power, and not only did I lose my power for a couple of days, but unfortunately the internet was down. So I was basically SOL, shit out of luck. Luckily, the power went on within a day or so, but it took them about a little over 2 days to get the internet going. So thankfully, I did have power back. So because of physical media, I had plenty of films to pop in the old Blu-ray player and still keep myself entertained. So, like I said, nothing wrong with streaming. I have plenty of streaming services that I love, especially those free ones like Pluto and Tubi and Freevee and all those good stuff. But there's something to be said for good old physical media. So, just a little story I thought I'd share with you. Right now, I'd like to give a quick shout out to all my fellow podcasters and people that I think you guys should support. Number one is my beautiful fiance, Jess Fernari. You can check out her wonderful and amazing artwork at Meowchi Roar on Instagram. As well as that, I want to give a big, huge shout out to the Not a Bomb guys, Brad and Troy, excuse me. This week, they're actually covering the cult classic, I believe 2002 Lucky McKee film, May. It's a great little psychological thriller slasher movie. What these guys do is every week they take a film that was a commercial failure at the box office, and they watch it and they determine whether or not it was actually a failure. So just because it bombed at the box office doesn't mean it was a failure by any means. It may be a financial failure, but not a failure. And like I said, this week they're covering May. It's a great film if you like those type of movies. As well as that, I'd like to, excuse me, do a shout out to the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Will and Sam. Every week these guys get together and they cover some really great films, and they cover a wide variety of different films. This week they covered a little horror film, which I cannot remember. I'm sorry, Will and Sam, I had it right in front of me, but needless to say, it was a great film, and I feel bad that I can't remember off the top of my head because I had it written down, but I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, unfortunately. Um, but these guys are great, and they cover a wide variety of stuff, and definitely check out their podcast. And thirdly, we have Watch Skip Plus with Justin and Jose. Now, these guys, every week, they talk about films or something that's streaming currently. Like this week, they're talking about the new Saw movie, Saw 10, and I can't wait to listen to it. I saw Saw about 2 weeks ago, opening weekend, and I really enjoyed it. Because even though it's the 10th film in a franchise, excuse me, they actually, in my opinion, they actually did a pretty good job with the story. And then went straight to the crazy gory kills. But these guys will be covering that this week, and you should definitely check it out. Another awesome thing about Watch Skip Plus is they also, besides covering the stuff that's currently streaming or currently playing at your movie theaters, they also talk about something else. It could be a art exhibit or a new product that came out on the market. So they give you more than just film reviews. So all those podcasts are wonderful, guys, and they're well worth your time. So I recommend you check them all out. And with any luck, if things go the way I'd like them to, I may even try to get a episode out between now and Sunday. And who knows, maybe we'll have episode 15. In the meantime, like I mentioned and I've been mentioning, I'm just waiting on a couple things to kind of come together, and then I should have some editing software, and I should start entering the world of editing. So I'm looking forward to that. And I got other cool stuff planned for the future. I mentioned it briefly for those who are on my Facebook group. I'm going to be doing a retrospective in November for the Canadian filmmaking group, Astron 6. I'm going to be covering their filmography, starting with Manborg, Father's Day, The Editor, The Void, and Psycho Gorman. I'm going to be covering all of those films. And in the lead up until November, when I do the retrospective, I'm going to also be posting, two of their short films every week on the Facebook group as well. So those are some fun things to look forward to. And I also have a couple other surprises that I have planned for November as well. So I got some really exciting stuff I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. I want to thank everybody for being kind enough to leave nice comments, sending emails, just helping spread the love. You know, I'm still the little guy. And like I said, I'm starting to build a little bit of a following here, and I'm so excited to have you guys all here for the ride. And I'm also, if I manage to squeeze in another review between now and Sunday, I'm also going to do a movie review and possibly tie in. I'm trying to do another comic book review as well. And hopefully down the road, I'm going to try to get my first video game review in too. So look forward to that in the future. And like I said, I hope you guys have a happy Thursday, and I will see you soon.